Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Keeping It Real on Kyrie FM 93.1. Today's the 11th day of September 2018, and what a few days it's been since our special edition on Friday. It's absolutely mind-boggling what has happened, the causes of what has happened, and where we are today, folks. It's a lot to talk about tonight, isn't that so, Mr. Ellis?
Well, roll over from last night, I tell you, there's a lot to talk about, and certainly we're here to try to keep things under control for you. Is that a pun? Under control, okay?
Well,
where's champagne tonight?
I don't know, he must be drinking wine. No champagne, I'm sure he's listening to us wherever he's rushing over here.
Or juice.
Well, folks, before we get into, all the goings on of the past few days, of course, one item that has been in the news the past few days is the shooting death of a St. Lucian in Dallas, Texas. Rather sad events going on over there. Police officer, a woman police officer by the name of Amber Geiger, who was a white police officer. And according to her story, which is what was initially put out there, she was coming off work, still in uniform, into a gated community. And those of you who wonder what a gated community, it's not a free drive-through street area. There's a gate, and usually manned by a security guard or with some means of entering electronically, either a wireless electronic device in your vehicle, or you drive up to a little keypad and you enter your security code, and it either opens up the gate or raises the barrier or anything like that. But surprisingly, she entered and accordingly entered her apartment, or it turns out what supposedly thought was her apartment, and saw Botham Shem Jean and shot him. Basically, that's what it was. But all of a sudden now, within the last 24 hours, I believe, the story is that when she got to her door, because everybody's asking the question, how come her key fit? Or at least that it was suspicious, it was fishy, that her key would have been able to open the door, or her key card, because every door has a unique key mechanism. And lo and behold, now, that has gathered quite a bit of speculation and criticism. And now, the story we're hearing is that when she got to the door of her supposed apartment, she found that it was ajar. And on entering, saw this huge figure and opened fire. Circumstances, as they have been reported, seem all very peculiar, very strange. And Mr. Ellis is signaling to me because he wants to say something.
Well, I want to, first of all, sympathize, send my condolences out to the family, the Jean family and all the friends, and St. Lucia in general.
Oh, and right now, just to cut across you for a second, right now, I think it's ending just about now. There's a vigil
right.
held on the Leclerc field.
We couldn't be there because we're here. But there are two situations that come to mind that I was involved with. And this is not to take away and make any excuses for the lady, but we're here talking about experiences we've had, and I've heard a number of them today on radio. Norbert?
Yes.
Would you mind letting me explain what happened to me?
Well, go ahead. I
All
don't
right.
know what you did.
Okay. Well, there are two frightening situations that I experienced.
Well, before you go ahead, because apparently it seems to be a little bit of a l'histoire you're going to give us.
No. It's
So, I'd like to recognize, because we have quite a few people tuned in locally. We have the regulars. I'm getting the messages already.
Okay.
Babono, okay, Babono, know you here. And I'm looking at my computer here, and I'm looking at all the people who logged in via our stream, our online stream. And Brooklyn, New York, good evening to you from sunny and warm. Oh, we just got a whole pile of other persons who've just logged on. Brooklyn, New York. We're looking at St. George's, Grenada. Toronto, Canada. Princesstown, Trinidad and Tobago. I know who you are down there in Trinidad. Conyers, Georgia, not too far from
And how are these
Atlanta,
people
Georgia.
logging on? You should give that for other persons listening.
they're-
They can pass it on to their friends.
Yes, I just got a message from Trinidad. Says I'm in the house. Yes, well, I saw you in the house there in Princesstown. You know who you are. Good evening to that other listener in Canada, Listern, I think it is. And actually, we have a few people. I guess they're listening on their mobile devices because they can't be home at this time, or maybe they're on their laptop or tablet or their cell phone or any other mobile device which can log on to our stream. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to Keeping It Real. And I just got another message from Canada. Apparently that person who is in Liston, he says, here. Well, good evening to all of you. We really do appreciate your being faithful to the Keeping It Real mantra. And just like we say around here, no fluff, no bluff. And so I was saying, as Mr. Ellis takes a call, I was saying that the whole circumstances of that shooting are very peculiar. But nevertheless, I'd like to extend my condolences to the family and friends as well, and to all St. Lucians, because in times like these, we are all one. We are all one all along anyway. And I wish that, this camaraderie and this feeling of oneness, if you will, or if you really want to stretch it, and the word that has been bandied about lately by some political types and others, this is where we show what real St. Lucianness is, in the acts of kindness and empathy and sympathy that have been expressed by St. Lucians over the past few days, by the St. Lucians who have called, by those who have visited the family both here and in Dallas, Texas. And I just got a message here. It says, we are listening in Orlando, Florida. Well, good evening to you in Orlando, Florida. Nice to have you tuned in to Keeping It Real. Okay, Mr. Ellis, you have a l'histoire to give us, and I see you folded your arms and you're looking at me. And
No. I know you have your fans all around the world, and I'm not going to be worried about that at all, because I have my fans too,
That's okay. Well, if you're hot and you have to fan yourself, you fan yourself.
No, I'll try to make them as quick as possible, and this is no excuse for what happened in the United States with the death of young Chiang. But I went to a West Indian party in Montreal years ago, when I lived in Montreal, and coming back home one night, we had a group of us in my car, and I was going to a gentleman who's a St. Lucian. Some of you might know him, Horace Springer. I was going to his apartment building. Now, if you live in Montreal and you know anywhere around the Carry Express, they build several buildings that look identical. Right? They build a series of buildings. And these are five, 6-story buildings. And when we got there to the building, coming back from the West Indian party about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, most of us got out, and I had to go and park the car. I had to find some place to park because, you on certain times of the day, you can park on the left side, certain times you have to park on the right side.
Alternate side of the street parking. That's for street cleaning.
So my wife at the time decided to stay with me while we go find a place to park, while the others got up and went upstairs. Well, we had to walk back to the apartment, and I walked back with my wife, and we went upstairs. And the apartment was on the 5th floor. And that's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, Norbert. And you walk upstairs quietly, and you walk in.
Were you drunk?
No, drunk. We are from a West Indian party. Well, I don't get drunk, so I don't drink too much to get drunk. I'm not like you. So we opened up the door, and we walked in the apartment. We expected everybody gone to their rooms and so on, gone down to our room and found out that there was no bed in the room. And when I looked around, I saw empty bottles. Then I realized quickly that I was in the wrong building. I was in the wrong building. And this is no make-up story. This is true. I can remember it. And my wife said to me, "Oh, we're in the wrong building. She cannot walk." She got so scared she can't walk. I said, "Dear, you better learn to walk because we got to get out of this building as soon as possible." And we got out. But just imagine if somebody was living there. The second incident, quickly, is that I was in Miami with a lady. I won't tell you who she was.
I don't want to know. I didn't ask you your business.
Know, right.
Oh, you can be so... I don't want to know your business.
And I was staying at the Plaza on 103rd Street.
Okay. Oh, it's a big-time hotel.
Right, big-time hotel. Big-time hotel. Trump and
so
Obama
let's
and those
get to
people
the
stay there.
Yeah.
And I normally would park my vehicle in the front of the hotel.
Yeah.
There was several parking spots, but I chose to park in a particular spot. But this particular night when I came home, there was a wedding taking place at the hotel.
Quick.
And there were too many cars, and I didn't get a place to park, so I parked at the back of the hotel. Would you believe that next morning when we got out to go to the car, we obviously went to the place that we normally park, forgetting that that particular night we parked at the back of the hotel. And no, but this is not anything made up. This is honest truth. There was a car identical to mine parked in that spot. Same color, same type of car. And I pushed the key into the ignition.
Yeah.
The door opened, and we both sat down in the car. But what caught our attention, there was a red light next to the gas stick.
Yeah.
And then I turned to the lady and said, "Wait, this is not our car. Our car is parked at the back of the hotel." I realized it was a police car.
Yeah.
And I got out quickly and locked the car back with my key and walked over to our hotel. Walked to the back of the hotel and got into our car. Now I'm saying this to say that there's some mysterious things happening in the world that you'd never believe could happen to you. And listening to that story today, I'm not making any excuses because I don't know the circumstances, but it just reflected on those two incidences that I experienced. And whether you want to believe it or not, do you know Ralph Springer?
Who?
Do you know a Springer? Howard Springer?
No, I don't.
Well,
is he rich?
He's not a Jew family. Sorry. I would have got more than a promise.
I have no use for
I would have got more than a promise. I assure you that. So, but I again, I want to say I sympathize with the family, and it's a very sad. You can't take back life, and I hope that the truth will come out of that story, if ever. Okay?
Right.
Thank you very much for that 2 minutes of
now?
time.
You finished?
Yeah, 2 minutes with Lionel Ellis. You know 2 minutes with Ken Ned?
Yeah.
We're at 2 minutes with Lion Legs.
That's
okay?
an old program, and most people here don't know about that Ken Ned.
Want to say good night to the folks in Colony House. I had Skinny's listening.
Skinny, good night to you. Somebody just joined us again on our online stream, St. John's, Antigua. Good night to you in Antigua. Glad you're on. And I'm sure you'll enjoy the show tonight because it's chock full.
What happened? You're talking
action.
secret. Speak up, man. You're messing up my levels. Keep your level up.
Man,
Is that your romantic voice you're
that's
putting
right.
on there?
That's right. Sometimes you have to.
Making love with the microphone
You
or
have to
what?
practice on the mic, But folks, good evening to you all. I'm sure everybody's been waiting to. Well, okay. Mr. Bundy, somebody sent me a message there. Where's my good night? Good night to Mr. Bundy. How are you? And thank you for tuning in. He's a loyal. He said, I'm a loyal listener. Yeah, you're a loyal listener for sure. So good evening again to Mr. Bundy. Now, folks, it's... Yeah, sometimes I just don't know where to start, where to jump in. And then at those points, when you get to a situation like this, usually people would say, why don't you just start from the beginning? Well, that's what I'll do a little bit, I guess. Folks, I was sad, but not visibly sad, but concerned about my observations over the past few days, the past few weeks, and then culminating in that March of Shame on Sunday. And I have to be honest, I must be honest, that in truth and in fact, by and large, I believe the vast majority of the persons who were on that march really do care about St. Lucia. I think they really do. However, that's as far as my analysis of that bit of things that happened on Sunday goes. With that caring and concern about St. Lucia, being concerned citizens who want to march, unfortunately, the evidence is clear that the concern or the concerns of these people have been based on a pack of lies, propaganda, misinformation, and a mischievous, to put it nicely, dastardly, and malicious agenda to destabilize this country, to destabilize the government of St. Lucia. And some of you out there, some of you hackalacks and satellites out there, the acolytes of mayhem and destruction, may have all the hackles on your back raised now, since I've brought it front and center at what really was going on. And the reason why anyone can come to that conclusion is because of the evidence that is out there. The evidence and the trail of similar actions which have occurred over time. It's not just a one-day kind of thing where an incident has occurred and people are genuinely outraged. No justice, no peace. Or some civil rights issue, or some issue involving the police, or some other significant occurrence which causes people to immediately become incensed and challenge the authorities. What happened on Sunday, the March of Shame, was a sustained and dedicated campaign to reverse, to interfere with, and an attempt to change the results of the June 6, 2016 elections. folks, the old people have a little expression, a little thing they say here in St. Lucia, which has been, I'm sure you've heard before. And I think it clearly applies to those behind this. And that is chagrin pouvoir. Mr. Ellis, Uncle Ellis, how do you define the word chagrin? Is it an uneasiness, a bother,
You're asking the wrong person.
a wanting, a desire, a lust for power? That's what I'd say. A lust for power, chagrin pouvoir. And it is obvious, folks. You know, as you know, those of you who have been listening all along, and for any new listeners tonight, I'd like to say welcome to Keeping It Real. I like to relate the points that I'm making. I like to draw analogies so that you can connect with exactly what I'm saying in your everyday life in the simplest terms that everyone can understand. I break down the technical speak, I break down the big words so that everything is hunky-dory for everybody, that we're all on the same page. You know, after all, we got to keep it real around here, right? Yeah. It's lost in space there looking at that screen there. I don't know what you're looking at over there, but something's really interesting over there. But folks, I have observed a dangerous pattern. And there's also an expression in English which says, or which goes, cutting your nose to spite your face. And how I relate this is to the multitude of ways in which certain individuals out there who are not pleased about not being in government have tried and continue trying to sabotage not just the government, not just the smooth operations or the smooth running of the country, but sabotaging the good name of St. Lucia, no matter what. This, folks, is unconscionable. And regardless of who it is, whether it's one side in opposition now, the problem is that when you damage and when you attempt to destroy by any means that you can the image of St. Lucia, the reputation of St. Lucia, the credibility of St. Lucia, the viability of St. Lucia for investors, for visitors, that usually would transcend administrations. So you would be the beneficiary, eventually, of the very same situation which you would have created. And sadly, folks, it seems like there are persons out there who have no compunction. They have no apprehension. They don't give a damn about what happens to St. Lucia as long as they can get back into office. And I would like to read something. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing that so much information is available on the internet, and that so much of that information comes from a time when certain people were still alive who no longer are. And it's rather profound and revealing to discover statements that they made so many years ago that apply so well now, and shows very well that they understood the, how can I describe them? The devious, the malicious, the dangerous and self-serving individuals who claim to have the interests of St. Lucians and St. Lucia at heart. And I would like, just a second there, folks. I'd like to read a little bit of something which was said actually by the late great Sir John Compton. And as a matter of fact, just a few days ago, it was the 11th anniversary of his death. So this statement, which was made by him, is at least 11 years old. I'd say maybe about 20 or so. And I will read it for you just quickly. And here's what Sir John Compton said many years ago. And tell me if it doesn't run a chill down your spine. If it does. I'm just being melodramatic here. But if it doesn't open your eyes a bit. Here goes. It is all well and good and in keeping with democratic process for one political organization openly to oppose the policies of another. But some things transcend political ambitions. It is altogether counterproductive to make rash and foolish statements that serve only to weaken public confidence in the current and future governments of St. Lucia. When we speak in Parliament, we should always be mindful of the impact on heirs at home and abroad. In the national interest, and notwithstanding our insatiable lust for power, some things are better left unspoken. And folks, where that should take you, if you've been paying quite a bit of attention to what's been going on in St. Lucia, and what has been said, and what has been written and communicated, you begin to wonder exactly how St. Lucian, or the St. Lucianness of some of those who are bandying that word about. Oh, your St. Lucianness, our true St. Lucianness. Our St. Lucianness, when these same persons uttering those words condone and participate in the destruction, they participate in the erosion, they participate in the maligning and the sabotage. That's the word I was looking for. The sabotage of St. Lucia's image around the world. When persons can have the gall to state publicly, in full public hearing, and in the age of the internet, that they will write to investors or inform investors or international business persons not to invest in St. Lucia, who do you really think that you'd be hurting when you do that? Governments come and governments go. But the destruction that you will cause to the economy, that the lack of confidence you will cause investors to have in our country, the country that you claim to love, the country that you claim that you, when you take that oath of office, will do everything to protect. When you will do anything that you can to throw your country to the wolves for political expediency, you should be ashamed. You should be flogged on the square at high noon, across the back and buttocks, and then released to the dogs, naked, shameless. And for anyone, whether political in nature, whether regular citizen, Joe Blow, whether priest, doctor, nurse, mechanic, anyone who will have the audacity and the temerity. I better look up the meaning of that word. Look up the meaning of that word for me. The temerity to willfully and wantonly and without shame say in public that they will contact persons outside of St. Lucia and ask them not to invest in their homeland that they're supposed to care about. I expect anything else from that person. Anything at all. You do not care about St. Lucia, and you do not deserve to have anything to do with St. Lucia. You should be banished into the wilderness among the wild beasts and slithering creatures. I hope I'm not getting too pastorish there. Folks, that was one statement that was made about asking investors not to invest in St. Lucia. But also, there are other examples. And you see, the thing is that when you are aware of what's going on, it becomes very difficult for you to be surprised anymore. I'm looking for a letter here. Here it is. You see, I was talking to you about a statement made about investors and dissuading people. But there's also another bit of evidence here that I would like to read to you. But before I even do that, I'd like to draw your attention to other little idiosyncrasies of the opposition. That's right. And it is very troubling that over time, if you're observant, you decide, I'm going to tell you, and you decide for yourself. But for me, it's very troubling and concerning. And I see it falling into a pattern, or what people would refer to as an idiosyncrasy, a little habit, a little thing about someone or something, a little idiosyncrasy. And it strikes me as far from strange, bizarre, alarming, that almost every time that the St. Lucia Labour Party, whether in office or out of office, have to make statements about the opposing party or about the government when they're out of office, particularly when they're out of office. But usually, when they're all fired up in front of frenzied supporters, they always seem to allude in some way and then later on say, oh, it was never meant to be taken literally, to resolving the problems in some sort of violence or in some sort of physical manner. Alan Shasney will never be Prime Minister, or he'll be Prime Minister over my dead body. What's that all about? Yeah, we know. But when you start developing a pattern for saying stuff like that, we have to have a revolution. We have to kick them out of office. We have to get them out. Now, when elections was just 10 years, not 10 years ago, when elections was just 2 years ago, and you want to make bold statements, they must be out of office by the end of the year. Alan Shasney must be gone by the end of the year. Hello. Perhaps you're forgetting a little thing here, that an election cycle is 5 years. And maybe you'd like to create the atmosphere that things are so bad in St. Lucia that we're all desperate to get the government out. No, it's not. You're just trying to fool yourself. You know damn well it's not. You know damn well the economy is doing much better than when you were there. Say it ain't so. And if you want to say it ain't so, call 456-0931. Call and say it ain't so. Because the evidence is there. Ask the IMF and the World Bank. Yeah, they just released a report the other day. Talk to them about that. Come talk to us. Call about the increasing tourist numbers. Cruise ship passengers. Oh, here we go. Good night. Thank you for calling. Keeping it real. You're on the air. No. I guess that credit went out real quickly. But folks, the numbers don't lie. The numbers are the numbers. You could twist and turn and jump up and down however you want. You could scream and roll on the ground. The numbers will continue to be the numbers. That's why they're not tackling the economy. That's why they can't tackle tourism. Because they can't. There's no information to present to contradict the numbers that are available. The economy is not the best that it can be, but it's certainly moving forward to better than what was inherited. Absolutely. But then, they'll jump on the hot potato. But before I get on the hot potatoes, I'll stay with the plantains. We're about to take a break, and we'll be right back to Keeping It Real. Make a note of that number, 456-0931. And if you'd like to email comments, questions, or you just want to make a statement, you can email us info at keepingitreal.lc. Info at keepingitreal.lc. We'll be right back after the break.
At 15 and a half minutes to 9 o'clock, we take you back to Mr. Norbert Williams on Keeping It Real. Go ahead, Norbert.
Well, welcome back, folks. Thank you very much for sticking with us. I just want to say good evening to someone in Brooklyn, New York. And she actually messaged me and said that she's actually cooking and listening to the show. We have a listener in Road Town, Tortola, British Virgin Islands. Good evening to you. And quite a few from the U.S. Richmond, Virginia. And we have another one from Ottawa, Canada. We have two other persons just logging on from St. John's, Antigua, Princesstown, Trinidad is still here, Woodbridge, Ontario, Canada, Toronto, Canada, Stone Mountain, Georgia. I bet I know who that is. Good evening to you and welcome to Keeping It Real. So, folks, I was saying about all of this use of, violence-leaning words. Violence-leaning words. I mean, we can speak differently to that, and the persons uttering those words have a better command than many other people of the English language, and I'm sure they could find words to express themselves without alluding to violence. But then again, violence is almost synonymous with the St. Lucia Labour Party. They have a record of being extremely volatile. Good evening. Thank you for calling Keeping It Real. You're on the air.
Yeah, Keeping It Real, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
How?
Well, I know you on a political topic this evening.
Yes.
However, it's a question that I really, really, really would like someone to answer for me. Because, that has been really a concern for me from the time I was a young man until now.
Yes. Can you speak up just a little bit more?
Yes.
There's a little bit of a hum on your line.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just concerned about the Roman Catholic and the contribution to our society, apart from making funerals for us and masses and weddings and what have you. What contribution are they making? I know this is not a topic, but it just pains my heart to see that, because in every town, city, and villages, we have a Roman Catholic church for a number of years now, and I don't see nothing that they're doing for the development of St. Lucia. I don't see nothing whatsoever. They're not doing.
Well. Let me ask you let me just jump in there and ask you a question.
Yeah.
Is the church concerned about the development of St. Lucia or the development of your soul?
No, they have to be concerned about the development of St. Lucia, because they are making finances. They are receiving capital.
Well, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you. I'll tell you something. I'm not an authority for the church, but just as you said a while ago, there's a Catholic church in almost every community in St. Lucia, and I'm sure. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Okay.
You said that there's a Catholic church in almost every community in St. Lucia. Is that correct?
That's right.
Right. Do you live in a community?
Of course.
So that suggests that you're not too far from a Catholic church.
Exactly.
Right. So what I would like you to do, or suggest that you do, is go over to that church tomorrow and ask the priest the same question that you just asking me. I'm sure he could give you a much more detailed answer than I can.
Okay.
Okay, Chief?
Thank you too much. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank you very much for calling.
Okay, you too. Bye. Okay.
Right.
Bye.
You want to say anything about that? Because I know you're a man steeped in the affairs of the church.
Well, you're putting me on the spot. That concern stumped me there a bit, because I would really like to know. You see, I remember when there was political turmoil years ago. I think Father Patrick Anthony was involved in
negotiating. That was the whole
yeah.
82 struggle with the St. Lucia Labour Party and all of that.
Right.
And what came out of that was what was referred to as
interim
the tripartite commission. Remember that?
Yes.
Right.
So sometimes when all else fails, they go to the church.
Well, guess what? Got a message from Champagne.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he has to deal with some issues. So, Brother Champagne, handle your business.
Champagne is not the same since he came back from Cuba.
I tell you, no, well, that started since he came from Martinique.
Okay, all right.
And he went to Cuba and he came back, and I think I'm a little concerned. You think we may need to have some sort of intervention for Champagne? Maybe, hey, call a priest or something, sprinkle him with some holy water or something to get him back to his usual self.
Well, I don't know. Maybe somebody pulled the cork and there's not much fizz anymore.
Yes. Okay. So getting back to that.
Yep.
So we're talking about the St. Lucia Labour Party's association with speech that is a little concerning to many people and has been over the years. And of course, the violence that has been associated with the St. Lucia Labour Party, there's absolutely no doubt about that. Those who don't know about it have heard about it, I'm sure, about the happenings around 79 into 82, and of course, the destruction of the city of Castries at the hands of supporters and others from the St. Lucia Labour Party.
Were you there?
I lived not too far away at that time. I remember going through and being present at a lot of what happened in town. One of the most, if I should say, to my memory, unstable periods in St. Lucia's history. In fact, a lot of it was as a result of, and remember I said earlier about Chagouin Pouvoir? Good evening. Thanks for calling Keeping It Real.
Good evening, Mr. Williams, and how are you doing?
Good evening, sir. I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, Guy Joseph.
Yes, sir. I made out that unmistakable voice.
Okay. I would like to make a short contribution on what has been happening in St. Lucia as far as the Labour Party is concerned.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
this opposition party is bent on destroying St. Lucia. And if you look at the utterances over the years, whenever Labour Party is in opposition, they do whatever they can to destroy and undermine this country. I don't want to go back to 82. They were in government when they were a destructive force. I heard Dr. Anthony saying about what they in the struggle, but if I recall what the late George Odlum and the others said, I don't think he was there in the struggle. I think he ran away at the time. But that is a subject for a different discussion. What I'm concerned about is the approach of the Labour Party towards St. Lucia, trying to paint a picture of discord, mayhem, indicating that things are so bad in St. Lucia. I mean, the economy is performing better under the Alan Chasney administration in 2 years than it did for the entire 5 years of the last Labour Party administration.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I heard Philip J. Pierre calculating some things and saying, well, look here, the Labour Party was in office for 5 years under St. Jude, and UWP have been there for 4 years, and neither party. Is he saying that they were not capable of finishing the hospital? Because if he was saying that, then he needs to come out clearly and to say so. But the biggest concern that I have would be the statements made by the Labour Party about St. Lucia. And we've seen the highlights. When Labour Party lost the elections in 2006, they came back and they said that they would write to investors. They would tell them, do not come to St. Lucia. Do not get involved in any investment in St. Lucia because of corruption in St. Lucia. So they did not care about the investment climate and what damage it would do to St. Lucia. This time around, they are back on the rampage, attacking the CIP program that they themselves established. I was in Parliament. I questioned Dr. Anthony at the time on what would be the rules governing the CIP program. Where was the regulation? Why was he passing the law without the requisite information to inform the Parliament? He gave us the assurance that this would come. He left office. I never saw the regulations and the different documents coming to the Parliament of St. Lucia for discussion. But today, they are back on the rampage to destroy the reputation of this country. And the report shows that it is based on the careless and reckless statements made by the Labour Party
I have it right here.
that is affecting the CIP program.
That was a report in the Financial Times on August the 22nd.
Exactly.
Yes.
So when these same men and women will come on a protest march or on a platform or call a press conference and say, oh, we are patriotic St. Lucians. Patriotic is not just a word.
That's
It
right.
is not
An
what
action.
you utter with
That's
your
right.
mouth.
That's right.
It is what your actions would do. It is what your action shows. And we've always known that action speaks louder than words. So for the Labour Party to come and say, oh, we love St. Lucia and we care about St. Lucia. You love St. Lucia and you're trying to destroy it because of Alan Chastney and Guy Joseph and the UWP.
Yes.
No, it does not work like that. So when they want to try and fool people, they cannot fool all of the people of St. Lucia. And as you have indicated, it was a match of shame. Because when you have done wrong, you have to be able to admit that you did wrong. So before they come and criticize what is done by the UWP, what they need to do is to come and confess all of their sins and their wrongdoing, all of the damage that they have done to this country. They need to confess it first. They need to ask the people of St. Lucia for forgiveness for what they are doing to this country. And if they really love St. Lucia, and he knows that he cannot do what he said he is going to do.
That's absolutely right.
He knows that legally
that's right.
He cannot do it.
But
he
sir,
will
if I could
do it just to damage St.
Yes,
Lucia.
yes.
I mean, it
yes,
is appalling.
yes,
It is
yes.
shameful that former Prime Minister of this country and other leading members of the Labour Party
That's right.
would stoop that low. If you are that good, come and win election on merit. Don't try to destroy the country to come and win
That's a real
election
shame,
in this
These
country.
guys. It's a real
It is
shame.
shameful what the Labour Party is doing. And for those people who are joining them, I respect everybody's right to express themselves. But when people say they love a country, there are certain things that you do not do. Internationally, you don't try to destroy the reputation of St. Lucia. You don't try to destroy. If you say we are doing it, then leave us to doing it. Don't add to what we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
But don't come and tell me you love St. Lucia so much, but you are out there painting the worst pictures.
Mm-hmm.
You have done more destructive
That is
things
right.
in St. Lucia.
That's right.
This Labour Party, the new Labour Party that was led by Dr. Kenny Anton, did more to damage this country.
Yeah.
And I remember the late George Odlum saying that what it took many years to build in this country, that the Labour Party, the new Labour of Kenny Anthony, would destroy it in less than 2 years. And they have done much more than that.
Well, well, you said quite a bit there, sir, and you took a lot of, well, when the evidence is there, exactly what I was coming up with next is what you've presented here tonight. And it is indeed very shameless or shameful for...
Can I say something to the minister?
Of course.
Good night, Mr. Minister.
Good night, sir.
And I just wanted to add a little bit to the topic there with regards
Now
to...
remember, my contribution was supposed to be short. I know some of the callers will say,
Right,
is that short?
right.
I
No.
don't want to know what's long.
Oh, no. I just want to say, according to one of the members of the SLP, Musa, when he's referring to the UWP, he says everybody in the UWP is guilty. And so I just wanted to say that when you're referring to Dr. Kenny Anthony, you have to,
No,
based
I
on his
said
theory,
the Labour Party. The Labour Party.
based on Musa's contribution to the march yesterday, all of them that participated are supporting one theory of destroying St. Lucia.
You know, and the Labour Party is very smart in what they are attempting to do. And St. Lucians must not fall for what they are doing. People need to remember the track record of the Labour Party. They need to remember the NCA. They need to remember Rochamel. They need to remember Grindberg. They need to remember all of the things that was done.
The Hellenites.
On the Hellenites affair. All of the matters that was done under the Labour Party Have we ever had an explanation from any of them as to what transpired and how it happened? No, we've had nothing from them. The economy, and I want them to have a discussion on the economy. Come and show where the economy performed better under their last term in government than it is doing under the UWP. Come and talk about the employment situation, and let us see who has created more jobs. Let's see who spent more money and who created more jobs for the people of St. Lucia. That is what they need to be talking about, not to try and play on the emotion of people and try to mislead people into doing things that are destructive to St. Lucia.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in, sir. Hope you have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. That was the Minister for Infrastructure, the Honorable Guy Joseph. And let me give you his full ministry layout there. The Minister of Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport, and Civil Aviation. Now, the minister exposed a little bit of what I was going to come up with next, and he mentioned, and I was going to bring up the Financial Times article, which stated the damage that and they said it directly, that the opposition, and in this case the opposition is the St. Lucia Labour Party, and they mentioned them particularly.
I just want to say that that's the part that the leader of the opposition didn't want to read on the program.
Well, that's okay. Other people can read it. It says, basically what they're saying, in essence, and that the Financial Times article of August 22nd this year is referring to, is the statement by the SLP that should they be returned to office, that every CIP citizen under the United Workers' Party government, every one of them will be reassessed. The due diligence will be redone on all of them, and the contribution which they've made, which the United Workers' Party government has now set at $100,000, they will nullify that and tell these people that they owe the government money. But the laughable thing is that the SLP seems to believe that they and they alone can set the policy and the direction for St. Lucia. And if anyone does anything different to what they want, that they can rescind, they can revoke, they can change, they throw a tantrum about anything and everything. But folks, you see what happens when you make a statement like that. You make investors, persons who want to buy into our CIP program, and the whole idea of CIP, whether it's 50 passports, 100, 500, 1,000, the whole idea behind CIP, Citizen by Investment Program, whether it's under the St. Lucia Labour Party, whether it's under the United Workers' Party, or in any other country, is to raise funds, to raise monies for the development of the country. Now, when you, as an opposition party, say, and clearly it's made its way out to the international community, it's made its way out to persons who would be interested in buying into CIP for a second passport or maybe a third passport, when it's all over the internet, and when it has got to such prominence and concern that it has affected the performance of St. Lucia's CIP, supposedly, and it makes it to the Financial Times, one of the most respected publications in the world. When it can be reported there, you can bet your bottom dollar that it is going to have some influence, that people are going to read it, and it does reflect concerns that persons have out there. Now, I'd just like to say to you that CIP and acquiring citizenship in St. Lucia via CIP is not something that's done arbitrarily. You go through the due diligence and all of that. We have a call. Good evening. Thank you for calling Keeping It Real.
Gentlemen,
Good evening, sir.
how are you guys doing tonight?
Fine. Oh, you know who that is, right?
How are you?
know. Fine,
Yeah,
fine.
but I had a little issue to handle, so I couldn't make it to the program tonight. But you guys have been listening, and you guys are doing very well.
We're doing very well.
How is everything? But you know, you were talking about the destructions that has been happening regarding the Labour Party from 79, but you all missed the most critical one, which was back in 1993.
Which one was that?
That's the one where they orchestrated, and then we had that's the time the banana farmers had the strike, and two young boys as well. I don't know if they were banana farmers, but two guys lost their lives. You remember that time, 1993, leading up there?
Yeah,
During the time the blockage of Sir John, when Sir John had to go for
But
that
who was
fire.
behind the demonstration? Wasn't it a legitimate demonstration?
Come on, that thing started. That was a strike regarding the banana farmers. But we all know, well, I don't know if you know, but most of us would know who orchestrated that strike and all that chaos down in the valley. I don't want to give any names, but I know I know everything about the history. Bridges were supposed to be blown up, everything. I know all the history. Okay? So let me tell you something. The comparison that we have to make, and let St. Lucians know it all at every cost, is that the United Workers' Party from my time, because it has been said that back in the 50s and early 60s that Sir John was radical and he had done a lot of stuff in the valley. I don't know that was before my time, but the time I know.
Well,
from
those
my
two
time up until
individuals,
now,
those two individuals were not farmers, actually. It was in
I
the,
know
it
that.
was in the
I
valley.
know that. I know that, but I'm saying that happened because of the banana farmers strike. But listen to me. My point is, the United Workers' Party has always been calm and respectable party. Every time we lose an election, we go by. Those that go home and cry, we go back and lick our wounds.
It's not about calm and respectable. The United Workers' Party accepts the will of the people.
That's my point. So we respect the electorate when they go out. When they go out, when they go out and they make and they cast their votes, and we lose, and we come back, we regroup, and then we come to win another election. But not these guys. I don't want to be long, but these guys in 2006, after the election in 2006, 1 month later, the guys dressed up all in black. Everybody, they asked all their supporters to have a black night meeting on the market. And you know what was said? We are giving St. Lucians a gift for Christmas. We are taking our country back. So that should not surprise any St. Lucian based on the behavior of this guy. It should not surprise anybody.
In other words,
these things are frequent. These guys do this all the time.
they don't accept the will of the people.
That is what I'm saying. They never do. They never do. So don't let anybody make you believe that there was a match and things. This is the fellow's custom. These guys are always doing that. Anyway, Brother Ellis.
Right.
I want you to play that clip for me before you leave the program tonight. The clip when the gentleman said he's here tonight to pray because he's one of the jackasses. You think you could do that for me?
This is not my show.
Okay, well, let's not have you hogging up the line. We'll see what Mr. Ellis can do.
Now you see the behavior.
No.
You all were asking, hold on. You all were asking me to be on the program. I'm always on the program. I make some time to call the program. Now you tell me I'm hogging up.
No, but you've been delinquent and you've been misbehaving since you've returned, and we're very concerned about that. And there needs to be some form of punishment for you.
And could you say a word of Spanish in good night?
Muy bien, muy bien.
Okay, good. Have a good night, okay?
Good night. Thank you for calling. Folks, that was Champagne. He didn't make it in tonight, but of course he had to get himself injected into the program. But nevertheless, let's get back to what I was saying. Folks, what the SLP is saying is a bunch of baloney. Okay? Write it down. Baloney. Baloni. That's how you spell it? Of course, that's not how you spell it. But it's a bunch of baloney, folks. Absolute nonsense. Talking about asking them for the balance or what the SLP had as the contribution for CIP applicants. And redoing the due diligence. Folks, I'm telling you straight, and I'm keeping it real, nothing of the sort can happen. Nothing. The law right now is what dictates what the fee shall be, and if the SLP or this current UWP administration wants to change that in the future, they can change it into the future, and the persons who will apply from that date will pay the new rates. But anyone who has applied for and been approved under the CIP program at this time will have no such action taken against them, because all of their processing and the application process actually was done under the law. So don't be fooled and don't be misled, and don't allow these sensationalist joker politicians to make you believe that anything of the sort is going to happen, because all it is designed to do is to primarily cause apprehension outside. This is not targeting St. Lucians. St. Lucians don't need to purchase any passport. They don't need to buy into CIP. That is targeting persons who may be interested in St. Lucia. And when you're targeting persons who want to invest in St. Lucia, again, you see, again, that ties in and follows the statement that I will write to all investors and tell them not to invest in St. Lucia. That follows that pattern. You see the pattern, people? Do you see the pattern? But there's even more to that pattern. And I read it last week. And to those of you who were not listening last week, or were unable to because our stream was down, those of you out of St. Lucia, there's another pattern of sabotage. Yes, folks, sabotage. Where from the Parliament of St. Lucia, because guess what? An opposition member is part of the Parliament, isn't he, Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
He's a member of Parliament. He's from the opposite side.
That's right.
But he's an elected representative of the people. When you're an elected representative of the people, you represent all the people in your constituency. And particularly when you're the government, even you represent even the persons who didn't vote for you, and even the constituencies where your candidate did not win. And you must provide all the amenities and security and facilities for the persons in all of St. Lucia. So, I don't know what you want to call it, folks, but a member of Parliament, as far as I'm concerned, was attempting to sabotage the government of St. Lucia, and by extension, St. Lucia. Because the actions, or the action that was being sought with this letter, would adversely affect St. Lucia. Adversely affect St. Lucia. And I will read it to you tonight. This is shameless again, and it goes to the pattern of behavior and confirms the pattern of behavior of the St. Lucia Labour Party. The leader of the opposition, of Her Majesty's opposition. The leader of the opposition, Philip J. Pierre, wrote a letter. He addressed it to the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, but he carbon copied it, he CC'd it. So I am led to believe, in fact, it was CC'd to the British High Commission and opposition members of Parliament. But I believe that the true intention of this was to write directly to the British government, because anything you write to the British High Commission is going to be forwarded to head office. And in this case, the British government. Because really and truly, this is not for the current government of the UWP's consumption. And I'll tell you why in a second. I'm not going to spoil it for you. Anyway, it is dated the 19th day of September, 2016, and it's addressed to the Honorable Alan M. Shastney, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, and the Public Service. At the hand of Philip J. Pierre. Dear Prime Minister, I write to inform you in my capacity as the leader of the opposition on the position of the St. Lucia Labour Party on the appointment of Mr. Guy Myers to the post of High Commissioner of St. Lucia to the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Listen, folks. It is the concern of the opposition that Mr. Myers, who served as Minister of National Security in 2011, by virtue of that role, was central to the government's policy at that time, which led to the alleged, he actually says it, which led to the alleged killing of 12 persons during an operation called Operation Restore Confidence. Consequently, there was strong condemnation from the United States government and other friendly governments. This led to a CARICOM-led investigation and submission of the well-known impacts report. You mean the same one that Kenny Anthony read, that many people considered to have jeopardized the case.
The bogus, according to the former
Coming to
conclusions
That's on his own. The necessary follow-up action by the government of St. Lucia has remained a contentious proposition. Now, which government is he referring to? He didn't say SLP or UWP, he said government. That encompasses their administration. The impacts report was submitted under his watch. A lot of the turmoil regarding impacts came under his watch. A lot of the insecurity, a lot of the measures, and a lot of the fallout of all of this came under his watch. So let me go ahead. The necessary follow-up action by the government of St. Lucia has remained a contentious proposition. It has constantly resulted in strong reactions from the government of the United States, the EU, and the government of the United Kingdom. It is difficult to accept that with the matter still unresolved, how appropriate can it be for the minister who had oversight of the operation to be recommended for accreditation to a principal diplomatic posting? The St. Lucia Labour Party believes that given the strong sentiments held by the government of the United Kingdom on the issues of human rights and due process of law, then deliberate consideration should be given to withdrawing the nomination of Mr. Myers and awaiting the conclusion of the process relating to Operation Restore Confidence. I wish to assure you of my highest consideration. Whatever the hell that means. I assure you of my highest consideration. Yet still you sabotaging your government because you see in this. So in essence, you're saying not to approve the appointment of Guy Myers as High Commissioner of St. Lucia in the UK. Well, guess what? The UK turned around and gave Philip JP and his SLP gang of destroyers a slap in the face. Destroyers of the reputation of St. Lucia. Because I hardly believe that a supposedly organized political party as the St. Lucia Labour Party, which has been around as long as they have, that Philip J. Pierre wrote this letter all on his own and his party knows nothing about this. That's highly unusual. It would be highly unusual. So the only conclusion that anyone can come to is that the party was fully behind this, or at least the majority of the party was behind this, because he actually says the St. Lucia Labour Party. Hold on, I'll get it for you. I write here, first line. I write to inform you in my capacity as leader of the opposition on the position of the St. Lucia Labour Party. So in essence, he's saying the St. Lucia Labour Party is behind this. Right? What was this designed to do? What was the expected fallout from this? Is it not reasonable for anyone to expect that a member of parliament in St. Lucia writing to the British government, the High Commission, and by extension the British government, would cause serious concerns by the British, and the achievement of this would be the sullying of the name of St. Lucia? But how ironic that the British themselves, who were very well aware of what was going on, totally dismissed this letter. They dismissed it. And Guy Mayers is now the St. Lucia's High Commissioner in London. But you know, it's even more ironic that instead of this letter, that Philip J. Pierre did not write to the British government and ask them to provide information about Jufali. You know, that would be interesting. I think it would be very interesting. And then it would show some real balls, the gonads, the brass ones, for Philip J. Pierre. Grow up, Pierre. Philip J. Pierre, grow up, Pierre. And not this sabotaging letter that you would write to the British. I mean, seriously? I mean, St. Lucians, think about this. I mean, really think about it. I mean, write it. I mean, deal with it internally if you want to. Write to the Prime Minister and that's it. Go visit the Prime Minister. You have all of these facilities available to you. But then you will go out and sabotage St. Lucia. Attempt to sabotage. And what makes it even worse? Worse. You write this letter and the British totally ignore you.
Well, listen to the English language and writing the British, right? I don't know if you can detect some situation here. Let's take the call.
Good evening. You're on Keeping It Real. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Norbert.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, good night, Mr. Ellis.
Good evening, sir.
You know, I just listened to you read the letter. You know, I was really taken aback by that letter. I mean, how can the leader of the opposition be...
Speak a little louder into the phone, sir.
Yes, I was saying, how could the leader of the parliamentary opposition be writing in his capacity to state the position of the Labour Party? Why would the British government be concerned with the Labour Party or what the Labour Party
That is
And
exactly what
that's internal politics.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You just stole my thunder.
You know, if you're writing as the parliamentary the leader of the opposition, write as the leader of the opposition, write on your own behalf and on behalf of the opposition, but you don't bring in the St. Lucia Labour Party. The St. Lucia Labour Party is a non-entity as far as governance is concerned.
But you see the misguided direction of this is or was to inject local politics. It's the same petty nonsense to inject local politics diplomatically, because this is a diplomatic communications for all intents and purposes by any means, a diplomatic communication, and you're trying to inject local politics, local dirty politics into our international diplomacy.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was just the point I wanted to highlight. I mean, and we hear all the time that those are supposed to be the bright people among us. I mean, I'm wondering how this thing could pass them. You know, you don't write to a foreign government and talking about a party. You speak about governance and you know, the government or the opposition, the leader of the opposition, but not the party. You know?
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for calling. But
no, but that's exactly the point I was going to make. That's why I asked you to let me read the letter myself, and I have it in hand now. And I'm seeing this. He is saying in his capacity as leader of the opposition on the position of the St. Lucia Labour Party. On the position of, not on the position of Her Majesty's Royal Opposition. You see, you understand what I'm saying? He's not writing
exactly
to
what
tell
you're saying.
he's writing to say, and he's copying to the British commissioner. He's
But you know, folks, again, the bitterness, and you know that manifested itself again recently, maybe I think it was about a month ago, when former U.S. President Bill Clinton was here. He was in Latuni for the opening of the solar farm that's in Viewfort. And the statement made by Dr. Kenny Anthony down there alluded to nothing less than Chagwe Pouvoir. I mean, I was there. Good evening, thanks for calling, keeping it real.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Let me just say that I support the leader of the official opposition for CC copying his letter. I will say to you, there is one difference between the United Workers' Party and the St. Lucia Labour Party.
Yes, it's in office. It's the government.
The government, but as two political parties, the St. Lucia Labour Party is a representative of the 47,000 who voted for them, and the rest who do not have a voice in St. Lucia. That is how our parliament is designed. So when he speaks as leader of the opposition, he can choose to take whatever sector of the country to put his point forward.
That's your opinion.
That is my opinion.
That's your
one,
opinion. Yeah.
My opinion one. And the difference again between the St. Lucia Labour Party and that of the United Workers' Party is that we are open. That is why we are able to bring out about 7,000 people on the street. And the other thing that is different with the St. Lucia Labour Party as to the United Workers' Party is that we have a dictator. Judge and say
we have a what? Well, I didn't hear that word.
A dictator.
Who's the dictator?
Our present leader. And I'll give you my reason why. You and a lot of others are busy, listen to me, busy, right, making very good things. What should have been some of them. But our Prime Minister, from his own mouth, I am very scared because he said something.
Just take a pause there a minute, sir. Let me ask you one question.
Let me hear you.
Right? If you are saying that you have no problem with him writing as leader of the opposition and of the Labour Party, because these are two distinct positions, right? He should then be writing the letter to the Prime Minister and the leader of the United Workers' Party.
Well,
right? The letter. No. I'm just saying, if he's writing on behalf of the leader, listen, let me repeat it so you get it clearly.
Yeah.
Because I have the letter in front of me. If he's writing as the leader of the Her Majesty's opposition, and also as the representative for the
but you
Central
see,
Labour Party.
but you see, this doesn't make a difference. Slow down. Caller, slow down. Caller, slow down a second, please. You see, it doesn't really make any difference because you're making a differentiation, or you're highlighting something that's totally irrelevant to the point that's being made. Hold on, caller. That in essence, what was being done, or what was attempted to be done, was to sabotage St. Lucia.
I disapprove that. I will tell you why I disapprove of that. The sentiments, right, of the leader of the opposition, the official opposition in St. Lucia.
But this is local politics, caller. This is local politics.
Listen to me. while you say that this is local politics, he is representing us on an international level.
So if you
And let
say,
me
so
just
if
say to
you, which international level you're representing us? The government is representing us internationally, and the government has been charged. Hold on.
Yes.
The democratic process has dictated that the winner of the elections shall be the ones to decide and represent St. Lucia on the outside. And as a result, as a result of the results of the polls, the government of St. Lucia decided who it wanted as the representative of the government and people of St. Lucia. In the UK, it was not the ambit or the responsibility of the opposition to write a foreign government. That is nothing short, that is nothing short of a virtual treason.
I will tell you, if you say that it is treason, right? If you say that is treason, I will say to you, the reason why I'm saying to you that the leader of the opposition, right, operates on a very organized, structural political party.
Yeah, that has, caller, whether they structured or not, caller, whether the party, you straight, caller, hold on. Whether it's a structured or not structured party, the point remains that the purpose of that letter was designed solely to sabotage St. Lucia's image. But that's not an opinion out of the blue. That is an opinion that is substantiated by documentary evidence in that letter. Plain and simple. You don't know what you're talking about. It is substantiated by the evidence that's presented here. That letter clearly indicates the purpose that it was written and the intention of the St. Lucia Labour Party and the opposition of St. Lucia by Philip J. Pierre. That is clear as night and day. And you can say whatever you want. That is what the intention of the letter was, to sabotage St. Lucia's image and to railroad the appointment of Guy Mears as High Commissioner of St. Lucia in the UK. So anyway, you know, sometimes people will come with their illogical conclusions. You know, illogical. And the attempt there was to simply, as the opposition, to override the decision of the government. And the SLP has continually tried to do that, to be government in opposition. We will not let them rule. The opposition wants to be the government when elected, and they want to continue being the government when in opposition. And it does not work like that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. It doesn't. Now, folks, let's move away from this here for a bit. You know, the fabrication of the state of St. Lucia at this time was rampant. And I must say I was very disappointed, although I believe that everyone has a right to express themselves. But with that right to express yourselves comes a responsibility. And much of what I saw on Sunday in the speeches, they're still online, much of what I saw on the placards, before I get to that, looking at that march on Sunday and looking at any march in St. Lucia, whether it's by the United Workers' Party or whether it's by the SLP, let's take that call. Thank you for calling, keeping it real. Good night. Hello? Hello? I guess that person has some technical difficulties. Just looking at the crowd, we must be proud and say that St. Lucia still is very much alive and well as a democracy. Many countries in the world, some of them not too far from us, do not enjoy the freedoms that we take for granted in St. Lucia, and particularly the freedom to march unhindered, without fear of being arrested, without fear of being thrown in jail. And that is a good thing. But then we must not abuse that right. We must not abuse it by telling lies, by misguiding the people. Because as I've said earlier, the people there, I'm sure, will love St. Lucia. I think everybody loves St. Lucia. But they've been fed a pack of lies. They have been fed a bunch of nonsense. Propaganda. And the people among us who support that nonsense, they know very well when it's not the truth. We know, folks. Let's be honest. You don't need to call to confess. You don't need to call to agree. But you know when a political party is full of you-know-what. We know that. But some people will support who they want to support and not say anything. But you know it's not right. You know it's not right. You know that elections was only 2 years ago, and that there is a reason for a 5-year term, a 5-year term that the former government had and failed to do what they promised to do. Good evening. Thanks for calling. Keeping it real.
Yeah, good evening. Let me tell you something. You see you?
So they refused to accept the will of the people. Although when they were elected into office, they were given a 5-year term and they decided what to do with that 5-year term. They were allowed to do what they needed to do with that 5-year term. Nobody called to the streets, regardless of what the UWP marched about, regardless of what people complained about. Nobody demanded that, September now? That in 3 months, the Prime Minister must resign. That we want elections. We demand by the end of the year. Good evening. Thanks for calling Keeping It Real.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you, them guys, they get angry, you know.
Yeah, that's typical. You see, that's exactly what we're talking about. When some of these people can't get their own way, they don't want anybody else to speak, to have a differing opinion. And you can see the rage developing. And that is exactly what we're talking about. The lack of tolerance for other persons exercising their democratic rights to speak and to let others know how they feel. Some people believe that they are the only ones endowed with that right. And that is the classic example of what we're talking about tonight.
Exactly. Well, that's true.
Well, caller, what do you think is causing that for these people?
Well, they want to be in the office every time.
But to get into office, you have to win the elections.
Exactly. But let me tell you, I prayed that they will never come back because that man, let me tell you, as soon as he come in office, all he do, he seized our money, our back pay for 3 years. If we now 7 years to 8 years, we can get our back pay. All 70 bills.
Oh.
Yeah, that's because I'm working with the government. I'm a security now, working with a school. For 14 years.
Wow. So how are you going to resolve that issue?
No, we have our own union.
Okay.
But they need to arrest.
What's that you said?
He need to arrest.
They need to arrest some people?
Yeah, no, the former government.
Why you say that?
Yeah, but the man paid much the money in St. Lucia. He that go on lend so many millions of dollars and all the debt on the other one.
So all of that debt prevented you from getting your money?
Exactly, because they always say that too, because we have to take the legal chance. Because what the money now? The hospital have to do, 5 years they do it.
That's right, they didn't do it for 5 years. But so now they want to demand that this government does it in 2 years.
Yes. effort money. What the effort money? Well, anyway, good program. I like it.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah.
Folks, if you're just tuning in and you'd like to call in, the number is 456-0931, 456-0931. And if you'd like to send us an email, the number is, the email address is info@keepingitreal.lc. Good night. Thanks for calling Keeping It Real. All right, I guess they're gone. So, folks, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Looks like we're going to go over tonight. It looks like that. At the rate things are going, there's a lot to talk about. Not quite. Let's not get carried away, okay?
Back to the program, Keeping It Real with Norbert Williams.
Yes, folks. Welcome back. Actually, I just got a message from someone here on YouTube. Not YouTube. What am I talking about? On WhatsApp. And that person says, "Boy, it's hot. My sauce dried up." That's the person who was cooking. And they got so engrossed in the show that they forgot the cooking on the fire, on the stove. But luckily, hopefully, you didn't burn it.
You know, no, but this is the same thing we spoke about so many times since we started these programs. You know, the Labour Party supporters must take it easy. They must allow people to have a difference of opinion. They will call and they just want to shut you up. I give you the experience of sitting in a restaurant and saying my bit about a current situation.
You keep talking about restaurants and all. You want the last piece of pizza?
You haven't offered me any pizza since you come here tonight.
So tonight is I need to offer tonight.
Right. Yes,
Other times you'll rate the pizza and nothing left for me.
Okay. Well,
but do you want to slice? Do you want the last slice?
Story.
You want the last slice?
Yes, okay. Definitely. You have that man, that gentleman, that caller, and we had.
That's our friend. That's our friend.
But he gets so hot and he's so one-sided, and he doesn't understand that we're just giving a different.
But he is one-sided because I heard him call another show and he identified himself as being a supporter and all enamored with and in love with.
You think he's the only? There are many other supporters of the St. Lucia Labour Party listening now. I know that. I've heard the news. I've got the news.
But that's okay. We want everybody to listen.
We want them to listen. But why they have to figure that they have to?
Let me interject here, folks. Listen.
I got some pizza to eat. So go ahead.
Okay, folks. I just want to say something. It's okay for you to support the SLP. It's okay for you to support the UWP. That's your constitutional right. But you need to, and we all need to, reject suggestions and innuendo towards violence that somehow somebody is going to latch onto some ridiculous statement by a politician who, the politicians who are famous for making those statements and commit themselves. We don't need that. Instead, look at the incident in Dallas, Texas, and how St. Lucians have shown themselves to be sympathetic, to be loving people. We don't need that kind of thing here. What is it going to accomplish? You think if we have any violence that it's going to solve St. Lucia's problems? That it's going to make things better? Or it's going to make things worse? And when you look at the way some people speak on the platform, some of the people at that march, there's a word in patois over here to describe them. Désolé. Désolé and enragé. I mean, they're ready to eat. Ready to eat the mic. That's not necessary, folks. You get high blood pressure. You'll get a brain aneurysm. You'll pop a vessel somewhere in your neck or in your head or somewhere. It's not worth it. Any way other than the peaceful, democratic way. Some people say, "Oh, we must do it." Like some tied up wild animal that even if you feed in them, they're ready to eat you alive. This makes no sense. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, I have a question to ask. A question to ask. I'm looking at the time and we're going overtime tonight. How is it, folks? And ask yourself that question, okay, please. Because don't just listen to what Norbert Williams has to say or Lionel Ellis or Champagne. Ask yourself the question, how is it that a political party with all the answers to our problems is in opposition? Ask yourself that question. How? How? Seriously. And how is it that a political party now in opposition, having failed through their full term in office, they failed to deliver on St. Jude's, they failed to deliver on the OKEU, they failed to dredge the John Compton Dam, even after they raised water rates by what? 66%? And then they tacked on, what did they tack on? A dredging levy or what was it? What is it? Opamemsav. What are you here for?
Pizza.
Good looks? I don't think that's what you're here for. I don't think that's what you're here for, man.
Pizza. And you know the last
Oh,
piece.
shucks, man. What somebody message me or call and tell me what that fee is. That dredging levy fee or whatever it was. They imposed all of that and still failed to dredge the dam. But all of these projects, all of these seriously infrastructure important projects, they failed to do. But now, all of a sudden, they are the cornerstones of virtue, of advice, of knowing how to do things right, of fiscal prudency and technical know-how. They have all of that under their belt all of a sudden since June the 6th, 2016. But now, for some strange reason, folks, they don't know how they failed, but they're experts now. They're experts. They are experts since the 6th of June, 2016. But where was all of this expertise before? That's what I want to know. When you come giving advice, when you want to demand that it's your way or the highway, you better have a track record, buddy boy. You better have a record. But the record is failures. Don't come and pretend that now you can posture as an opposition and dictate because you love St. Lucia so much and our patrimony. And you know what? People are dying. Oh my gosh, people are dying. We have to do something. Healthcare is the worst it's ever been in St. Lucia. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Boo hoo hoo. Well, what did you do when you were in office, son Don Gracchio? What did you do? Shameless. Come on. Don't you all have any shame? You think making noise and fabricating and putting out propaganda is ever going to change that? This is not the old communist days when the old Soviet Union used to recall books and change pages in it to change the recorded history, This is the internet age. But, we're talking about that. Somebody, a rather astute person, I don't know, maybe blowing some hot air for somebody. But someone made a very interesting observation today, I think it was, or yesterday. I'm like, my gosh. Some people on Facebook, after spewing a bunch of garbage and insults and wild behavior, becoming involved in agencies or being more publicly visible and needing to have a more, if you will, family-friendly profile have gone into their Facebook profile and whatever other social media profiles they have, sometimes deactivating those profiles, and other times actually going back in time and deleting some of the vile statements that they have posted online. Well, lo and behold, the St. Lucia Labour Party had posted loads of videos about their activities, their meetings, their speeches, whatever. And it seems some strange rewriting, unless they have some plans of putting it elsewhere, which still doesn't make any sense, because if it's there already, it's there, that all of a sudden all the videos from the time before elections have disappeared off their YouTube page. I think I was reliably informed when I was told so. I wonder why. I wonder why that happened. But, you know, St. Lucia Labour Party YouTube page or YouTube channel is not the only repository of information. This is the internet, folks. You can delete as much as you want. It's still going to be there. It just shows you that some people don't realize what the internet really is and what it is capable of. You could delete what you want. You could post all your nonsense. It's there forever, folks. Trust me. I know it's there. I know it's there because I was involved in IT for quite a while. I know those things. And what the regular person doesn't realize or know or doesn't care about doesn't make a difference because it's still there. Folks, trust me when I tell you, whatever you post online, it could be the biggest video, it could be just some text, it could be on WhatsApp, it could be Snapchat. Trust me, once it's gone out there, it's there. Believe me, the bits and bytes and these ones and zeros that are going out there are there forever and ever. And according to the Americans, you better believe that. So anyway, whilst I was watching, Sunday afternoon, it was a lovely day for the beach. I bet you a lot of those people on the march would have loved to be on the beach. Some of them usually do go to the beach. And I wanted to go to the beach too, but somehow I didn't make it there. I couldn't deny myself the opportunity to, sit down and observe the march. Lots of people watched. You want to hear what's being said. I mean, in a democracy, you need to get all sides of the story. And one of the, I think, more prominent interviewees on one of the channels was the venerable, if I can use such a word, the venerable. Let me just look up the meaning of that word. You see, I have no qualms about, I got the word right. I have no qualms about looking up words in the dictionary. I do that every day if I come across. And sometimes you just, maybe because of lack of use or whatever, you forget the meanings of words. And you look it up. That's how you learn. I don't have any problem in being corrected or learning something new every day. So anyway, the venerable Earl Huntley was given a, if you will, a ball by ball or step by step commentary with a reporter on, what was going on, the reasons behind the march, the logics and the arguments of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And I couldn't help but smiling at some of the statements that he made, which I don't really recall right now. But his being there and commentating on the march and the references that he made to his experience, alluding to his credibility and his accountability, Earl Huntley that is, really had me shaking my head. Because he's talking about the credibility of this government and wants to be taken seriously. I mean, he's held a lot of positions, but he's also been involved in a lot of very questionable activities, or at least activities involving himself, which had lots of questions asked. And Earl Huntley, for those of you who don't know, was a member of the St. Lucia Labour Party when he was appointed ambassador to the United Nations in New York. And at that time, we had the much spoken about, for quite a while, Hellenites affair, of which he was a central figure. And in the investigation, the conclusion was that he was a very questionable character. I don't have the exact words here, but much stronger language was used in reference to Earl Huntley and his credibility and the actions that he took with regard to the whole Hellenites scandal. And I think it all involved sums of up to $1 million or whatever. And then, of course, folks, Earl Huntley constantly touts his ambassadorship positions and him being ambassador or CARICOM figure in Haiti. And when you put these things out there, you're expecting people to have faith in what you say and have faith in your character and your credibility and your transparency. But then again, Earl Huntley continues to be associated. I don't know whether he is a paid member of the St. Lucia Labour Party, but for all intents and purposes, we'll say that he is a member of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And Earl Huntley again was at the center of another controversy, which is still rocking St. Lucia and costing St. Lucia money at this time, and that's the whole Grindberg affair. And Earl Huntley, according to the stories, was walking along Casaba Beach and he stumbled upon, or he stepped in some gooey substance, which he thought was oil. Yeah, sounds like what's that show? The black and white show. The Beverly Hillbillies. There you go. That's right. That's right. I see you're alert at 10 p.m. The Beverly Hillbillies. You know, that's what I'm talking about in being on the ball. And Mr. Ellis was on the ball. And I don't know, maybe I should get the little sound effect there of the Beverly Hillbillies to add some reality to what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here. So let's give you a little context.
Story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer.
That's
barely
Earl
kept his
Huntley.
head. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude.
Bubbling crude.
Oil, that is.
Oil, that
Black
is.
gold.
Black
Texas
gold.
tea.
So, according to the story, Earl Huntley felt like he was a Beverly Hillbilly, and he stumbled into or upon oil, some gooey stuff, the crude, whatever it is, some between his toes. That's right. Between his toes on Casaba Beach. And as a result of that, St. Lucians, all of our seabed eventually ended up in the clutches of one Jack Grindberg. Jack Grindberg. And what even compounds it even further is that, according to the stories, that Earl Huntley was the sole repository for all documents relating to the Grindberg affair. And if I recall correctly, he was ordered or given instructions by, who was it? Whoever it was, whether it was the former prime minister or whatever, but he was given instructions by someone to keep these documents in his care. So I don't know. You know, folks, the Governor General, according to the law, is supposed to be the one to give the nod, the approval for the sale or for mining or anything of the sort. And the pillar of virtue and accountability and credibility, Earl Huntley, is the one chastising the government. I mean, when you're a source, when you want to be the source or the point of reference, of criticism, of giving direction, of chastising people, you have to be practically without sin to do that. Earl Huntley does not have that credibility. Whether he was with CARICOM or whatever, locally, there are some serious questions to be asked about his credibility. No, I ain't lying. I didn't make it up. But that is what's there. But let's you know, let's move on. Let's move on. So, folks, the promo that went out late this afternoon with regard to jails is going to another hot manufactured issue, and that is, you ready for it? Uncle Ellis, are you ready for it? The prisons in town. Her Majesty Royal Gaol, Gaol, Royal Jail. Those of you who are quick and ready to admonish me, it's Old English. Gaol was pronounced Gaol or jail. Right. Royal Jail. And Royal Jail. Oh, somebody messaged me and chastised me sternly with exclamation marks. It's pronounced Jail. Jail. Well, oh, please don't report me. Don't report me. Okay, Royal Jail. I bet some of you, many of you out there didn't know Gaol is jail. It's Old English. So anyway, demolition works, reconstruction works on the, we seem to have a lot of issues around reconstructions and works all of a sudden, you know, coming from the previous administration. Anytime the government attempts to do something, they all bent out of shape, make it an issue. Why is that? Why is that? You know, why can't they work in the background like some other good old St. Lucian citizens? Work in the background for once. Don't say nothing. Work in the background, we'll understand. Because we know what working in the background means. That you do nothing. And maybe we'd like you to do nothing. Just be quiet for a while and let the country run. Let the country go about doing what is needed to be done. But anyway, some people are bent out of shape at what is being done with the old jail. Oh my gosh, there's a historic monument. It's a historic building. Hypocrites. Yes, such hypocrites. I mean, don't you people have any shame? Hypocrites. You know, where were you all? Where were you all a few years ago? The past few years, the past 21 years, when that building just lay there, empty, abandoned, falling apart, with squatters destroying every piece of it, with criminals, crooks, using the back of the dairy as an escape route from the Marchand area, using The old prisons, the Royal Jail, the same one. It's a historic monument. It's a historic building. Where was your concern? Shameless as you are. Where was your concern when people used it? And just to let you know, I was in there on Friday. Yeah, I get around. And the place stunk of... You know what that stuff is. It stunk of shh. Don't say it. It stunk to high heaven. My goodness. When it was used as an open sewer, an open toilet. Not just for pee-pee, but for poo-poo. Where were you all concerned about its historic significance? Where were you all? But of course you were nowhere because you were working behind the scenes too. You all were working behind the scenes too. But all of a sudden, everybody who was behind the scenes has found a voice. Is so concerned now about everything. If the wind blow too hard, they concerned. Shameless as y'all are. Shameless opportunists. Shameless political opportunists. Obstructionists. But you know, the St. Lucia National Trust, I'm not even going to get into the details because that's even more interesting and funny than anything else, the whole process. But sought an injunction to halt the works that were being done at the old jail on Bridge Street, behind the traffic department there. Those of you who know, by the old police barracks. And you know, in getting ready for this show, and over the weekend, out of my curiosity, I found the St. Lucia National Trust Act. And those of you who want to get the info on your own, you could just search, Google it, Bing it, Yahoo it. So just search for the St. Lucia National Trust Act. And it should be the first result that you find. It's a PDF file, and it actually leads directly, or it's actually from the St. Lucia National Trust website. And there's a section there that's relevant. And let me just get to the right page for you. It's not far down. And in section 4, and it says, the trust shall have a principal office in the city of Castries. And then we go down to 4, and it says, the objects of the trust shall be, and it says, the listing of buildings, objects, and monuments of prehistoric, historic, and architectural interest, and places of natural beauty with their animal and plant life. That covers a lot, folks, that the trust can decide. B, the listing of objects of prehistoric, historic, and archaeological interests. C, the compilation of photographic and architectural records of the above. D, to locate and to promote the preservation of buildings and objects of archaeological, historic, artistic, or traditional interest, and the establishment of museums. The trust has a lot of things under their belt, folks? They have a lot of things under their belt. Now, reading this now, you know, the astute individual that I am, one thing that jumped out at me, and that in every line or every subsection of this, it says the listing. And I asked a knowledgeable person what the listing means, because when you're dealing with legal stuff and laws, words have or can have very different meanings to what and how they are used in regular communications. So anyway, I didn't really get any, definitive response then, because listing, I guess, is the normal meaning of the word the listing. But then I was thinking to myself today, but where would this be listed? You know, it's the listing, but who would list it? Where would such a list be? You know, you finish eating pizza and, you know, you just... you can have a drink over there, you know. And in doing some more investigation, you know, I came across some information today. And it seems like the National Trust has not really been doing or performing the duties that they have been assigned, and that the authority that the National Trust proclaims to have, or one may infer that they have, is not quite so, because for an entity to have that type of power, you have to be very careful. You have to be very circumspect in allowing an entity to have that kind of power. And apparently, the listing of buildings and all these other facilities have to be listed or sent somewhere for approval. So the trust, so there is still a little check and balance in the system here. So the trust cannot really arbitrarily just stuff things down our throat and just decide, you know, this building is historic, or we want this place here to be a park, or whatever they decide to do. And, well, let me get back to it. Chapter 5.12 of the Physical Planning and Development Act, revised edition, showing the law as at 31st December 2008. Okay? So those of you who want to pay attention to that, can pay attention to that. Ma avocat me ma dek. Right? Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Section 33. Preservation of sites and buildings of interest. And then I will go to subsection 2. And it reads, as soon as may be practicable after the inclusion of any building, monument, or site on any list compiled or adopted under Section 1, or any amendments to a list have been made, the head of the Physical Planning and Development Division shall serve notice on every owner and occupier of the building, blah, 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 and shall publish such. Then in Section 3, I want to get to the real piece of it that, let's see here. Okay, hey, there it is. Section 1, that's right. Subsection 1. I was getting ahead of myself, folks. The head, so it's Section 33, subsection 1. The head of the Physical Planning and Development Division shall compile lists of buildings, monuments, and sites of special prehistoric, historic, or architectural interest, or may adopt with or without modifications any such list compiled by the St. Lucia National Trust under, and it tells you what the authority is, the St. Lucia National Trust Act, or the National Conservation Authority under the National Conservation Act, or any other person, and may amend any such lists from time to time. So before the listing of any buildings, objects, and monuments of prehistoric, historic, and architectural interest, and places of natural beauty with the animal life and plant life, before any listing from the St. Lucia National Trust can take effect, it has to be submitted to the DCA, folks. And the DCA shall then examine such list and decide and have the final word on whether what that listing contains, whether the submission of the National Trust meets or satisfies the DCA. Now, lo and behold, according to my information, there is no such lease. There's no such lease. I'm sorry, list. There's no such list. So, apparently, just making noise about buildings and getting injunctions in the court does not really amount to much. And I think the case, when it comes before the courts, will be very interesting and what I suspect might be very short. So there is no such list gazetted. None. So you're left to wonder what the National Trust was doing all along and whether any of the sites that they claim to be of historic significance in St. Lucia are legally historically significant. Because if there's no such list, and there's no such list gazetted, the list, at least, of the St. Lucia National Trust does not contain the Royal Gaol. It does not. So one is left to wonder if many of the sites which are considered to be historical by the St. Lucia National Trust really are so legally or lawfully, whether they have been submitted to the DCA for consideration or approval. So that was just my little thing. Maybe I'm not understanding properly. And everything is hunky-dory. And the trust really knows what they're doing. And it's not just opportunistic at this point or within the recent past. And the Royal Gaol is on that list. But as far as I'm informed, the information that I've been able to gather is that it is not. But Thursday is just 2 days away.
And I dare ask, I wonder if anybody from the trust is listening. They can call
I'm
and
sure
clarify.
somebody is, or they will hear it tomorrow after the recordings.
Yes.
But the fact remains that there is no gazetted list, folks. So what's that place down there just before Denry going up the hill there? That's the old, Fondor. Is it really a historical site? Is it on the list? Is it on the gazetted list? You know, it's little technicalities like that you find out all of a sudden.
So what's going to happen? The injunction is filed?
Well, an injunction to stop the works there, and then I guess the arguments will be made as to the classification of the building. But if it has not been listed, then the argument that it is of historic value, or that it is, you see, the historic value or the historic significance does not come from simply saying that it is. There's a legal process,
Okay.
right? And there's not just a legal process where you just say, you know what, that building is. There's a check and balance there where it's further looked at by another agency. And then, of course, there are the considerations of the viability of that building. In fact, I want to mention, this is all the background thing we keep hearing about. It's working in the background, working in the background, but everything in the back and nothing in the front. And folks,
I would like the trust, now that this has come out, the trust to publish in the newspapers.
But let me just bring something forward here, because St. Lucians forget very easily. The Remember some years ago, during the former administration, when the former Prime Minister wanted to put his office, the Prime Minister's office, up at Latok, at the, what people call the Madhouse, Golden Hope? Was that not a historic location?
Mm-hmm.
Had demolition already begun there? If you go up there now, does it have a roof? Was there DCA approval to remove the roof of that historic building?
Well, that's what I'm saying now. But now is the time.
Where the question is, where was the National Trust then? They were, no, you know what? They were working in the background. Where were they then?
But maybe they didn't have that on the list. Now is the time for them to publish the list. I mean, their voice.
But if they didn't have that on the list and they
Saturday,
didn't have this one on the list, then where was the noise back then?
I would like them to come out this weekend paper, publish all the buildings that are on the list. They should have that ready available.
They knew very well. They knew. But it was not on the radar.
I want to put a challenge to them.
I don't care about that right now. I'm talking about where were they? This is after the fact. If we want to talk about the noise that they're making now, hollering and screaming about what this current government is doing, what I want to ask is, where were they?
Mm-hmm.
Where were they when Golden Hope, that old historic barracks over there,
Yeah, it certainly.
it's just a shell now. What happened to it? It didn't burn down. Where were they to talk about preserving that?
Would the CDC buildings fall in that line, too?
I don't know. You should ask them.
Well, that's why I'm asking them. And I would like them to publish in the paper so people like myself who really didn't think about that. Put it in the papers. Yes.
Good night. Thanks for calling. Keeping it real. You're on the air.
Good evening. Mr. Robert, first let me just apologize for probably my anger a little while ago.
Okay, your apologies accepted. You see, all we have is love here, you know, brother?
But, yeah, and let me just say something to you. Huh? Probably you do not know who I am.
I don't know who you are.
I better state who I am. So that
no, you don't need to do that. It's not important in understanding.
So I know why I want to do that. I want to do it so that we can have a cordial relationship.
I'm not hearing you too clearly.
I said I want to do that because I want us to have a cordial relationship.
Yes. I think we have most of the time. Don't you think so?
Let me just quickly give you a rundown of me. Huh? I started my politics from age 11. I came out of school in 77 when the hit of our independence came on.
All right, don't be too long, bro. Summarize because we have time against us.
Yes, I gone through this. I also had my interest in representing my people in the parliament with the United Workers' Party. Now, I just want to say about the National Trust, and that tells you that I'm speaking from a political and a politician's point of view, irrespective of which party I support today or tomorrow. My concern is the management of my country, right, and my love for my country. And my opinion may not be accepted by anybody, but I believe that I have given myself that leeway and that right, and I hope to continue it and not to do like some politicians. When they get into an election, they fall out and they move out. Those are the politicians I feel that may have come into it for the fame or the money. I am in the politics for the love of my country. And I will I have different opinions to people, but I do not like when I'm being cut off, because I would never do it to anybody when it comes to the development of my country. And I just want to say, on the note of the National Trust, our forefather, the head of the state, knew exactly what he was doing when they penned that law. Thanks for Henry G. Roddy and others who did at the time. And let's let the court decide. Let's not judge. Okay, good night.
Okay, good night. So thank you for calling back. Folks, so you see, again, we have another organization which apparently, during the previous administration, was working in the background. You know, what they were doing, being in the background, I really don't know. because it doesn't really seem to be anything that was being done. But all of a sudden now they have bloomed. Maybe they were being fertilized. And now all of a sudden the UWP always sprouts. People speaking all of a sudden, finding themselves. I think the UWP government is good for a lot of people in St. Lucia because it helps them with their speaking skills. It encourages them to come out and exercise their all of a sudden found rights and responsibilities and St. Lucianness and care for their patrimony. You know what that word means? Their patrimony? You don't need to answer. That's okay.
I still want the trust to be able to publish a list of the buildings that they feel is
not just publish, for it to be legal. It has to be gazetted.
That they have under all the laws of St. Lucia, that they would be in a position to stop anyone from demolishing it, whether it's this government or the next government or the last government or whatever the case may be. Because, they might even have the massive tree in the square on the list, on Columbus, on the Derek Walker Square, because that's a significant historical tree,
Yeah.
Imagine Castries without that tree. So we have a lot we get into a lot of things that the average St. Lucian will learn, because I didn't know that if the prisons had to be demolished for whatever reason, that there would be an injunction by the National Trust. So they have to come forth now and say to St. Lucia, not to Norbert or not to Ellis or not to this station, to the general public, these buildings should not be touched unless we give the okay. You with me?
Yes.
I thought you fall asleep for a moment.
Asleep with my eyes wide open.
Yeah, that happened to me sometimes.
Sometimes.
When you're really tired, you
sometimes? That's abuse, That's abuse of the word sometimes,
When you're really tired, like that policewoman might be so tired, she works so long hours. I hear she worked 15 hours. Or sometimes you fall asleep and you don't know you're sleeping. Your eyes wide open, right?
But you see, the question is asked, of what importance was the Royal Jail in Castries? Because of whatever list which is around, the Royal Jail was not included.
Well,
and I don't see how.
I would think they have a plan for that building. They might have a plan for that building.
Hold on. All of this is just for political mischief. Because how could you miss that building in the heart of town? How could you? How could you? And there's something that I'd like to read to you folks, but we'll take a little short break, and when we come back from the break, I will read it to you because I think it is of paramount importance to get to it.
All right, Mr. Norbert, it's not only overtime, it's course overruns. It's now 25 to 11. And we take you back to Keeping It Real.
Well, I'm back, folks. But it's some interest. There's a publication which was you see again what I say to people. The internet is an amazing place, if you can call it a place. And there's a publication which is available online. The publication is called Nationwide, and it's actually described as a publication of the Department of Information Services. That's the government of St. Lucia. And this publication, just for your interest, is dated January the 18th, and wait for it, 2003. And it says, "Welcome to Bordelais." So, in essence, I guess Bordelais is 15 years going on 16. Sweet 16, would you say? In January of this year. Well, anyway, on the front page, I assume it's the front page, it says, yeah, it's the front page. It says at the end of this article on that page, it says, see page 3. I'll just read it to you. Back in 1958, that's how it starts. You know what? This is an interesting story to follow up on and see what the information about this is. You know what? I'll find it for you all tomorrow, folks, and maybe I'll post some information on the Keeping It Real Facebook page, or reserve this information that I will find tomorrow for next week's show. And it says, "Welcome to Bordelais. Back in 1958, Lord Farrington, a visiting British lawmaker, made a most damning condemnation of St. Lucia's Royal Gaol. As reported by The Voice," so it's in The Voice. "As reported by The Voice, he described the Bridge Street prison as an abomination and expressed the view that the only remedy is to blow it up with dynamite." I wonder why he said so. Because of the abominations that transpired there? Because of what was done to whom? Prisoners? Who knows? I don't know. Well, I'm going to track it down at The Voice. I'm sure somebody else might try to beat me to it, but that's okay. And that's the first paragraph, folks. And it goes on further to say, on Wednesday this week, almost half a century later, St. Lucia finally laid to rest the old Royal Gaol with the official opening of the new $48 million Bordelais Correctional Facility in Dennery. Bordelais also signals a fundamental shift in St. Lucia's approach towards the treatment of offenders, with new emphasis on rehabilitation rather than just punishment, as was the case in the past. So an interesting first paragraph in all of this, and I promise you that there is more information. And of course, the St. Lucia National Trust would have known at the time. Everybody, Bordelais was the big talk, and everybody would have known at the time that the jail would have been vacant. But the government had no plans for it. Obviously, the St. Lucia National Trust couldn't care less about it. They couldn't care less about people all over the place. They couldn't care less about criminals using it. They couldn't care less about the fires that were started in there. They couldn't care less about the crumbling infrastructure. They couldn't care less about the collapsing walls. They couldn't care less about anything at all. But all of a sudden, miraculously, the policemen getting a new headquarters in that location, and the move ahead to grant them, the police who have been crying, who have been languishing practically in hell, the police who have had to deal with mold just like everywhere else, who have already gotten new premises, the police who always seem to be last on the totem pole in receiving anything, whether it's equipment, whether it is furniture, and I can tell you about that. Training. I can tell you about furniture. Because back in the day, when the police needed furniture, when they needed desks, when they needed chairs, the only time they would get new, quote unquote, new furniture was when another government department decommissioned or got rid of their old furniture to be replaced by new furniture. Then the police would get some hand-me-downs. You know, that was the disdain that the police was treated with. Hand-me-downs. So the police know a lot about working under the most trying of conditions. The police have been crying out for new premises for the longest while. And now that this government is doing something about it, just like so many other things that the government is trying to do, all of a sudden, there's a problem. Something that they did not care about before. A facility that, for all intents and purposes, had been abandoned. It was damned. It has served no useful purpose. Wasn't even cleaned. What was transpiring in there? Nobody did anything about it. And I went in there, I'm telling you, and the smell of shh. It wasn't doggy doo-doo or cat. But the place has lots of guano. And to those of you who don't know what guano is, it's bat shh. Bat droppings. Place is loaded with bats. I know somebody was there on Saturday. I know he must have run like a little girl when the bat started flying around his head. Hey, how you doing? It's political games and mischief. And using the St. Lucia National Trust and using other organizations as tools to stagnate, to impede, to halt the moves by this government to get St. Lucia out of the rut that it has been in for too long. Folks, what we have seen in St. Lucia over the years has been successive administrations doing the same thing over and over and over again. I think we can all agree with that. Doing those same things over and over and over again have not succeeded in getting us anything that we have been wanting. It has not succeeded in delivering St. Lucia from the depths of despair, from the situation that has repeated itself year after year after year. This government has realized that to change the results that we have been getting, we must change our approach. We must change the way we go about doing things. Folks, it's not a matter of us against them. It's a matter of all of us. The rhetoric leaning towards violence, the aggression that we see, the intolerance that we see expressed, the threats, and the scary talk. A lot of it is scary talk. Many people say so. A lot of the scary talk that we're hearing out there has no place in St. Lucia. The government has been elected. Things ain't that bad. Tourism numbers are up. The economy is doing better. Work is going to commence shortly on St. Jude Hospital. The OKEU Hospital is already providing services. The John Compton Dam is on the verge of the commencement of the desilting operation, which is... Can you believe this, folks? The desilting operation for the John Compton Dam is going to take 10 years. When the John Compton Dam was built, the depth of the water at the wall, at the dam wall, was 97 feet or something of the sort. Today, because of the lack of dredging of the silt which comes down from the mountains, the water depth at this point is about 20 feet or something. So, if I recall correctly, about 20 feet. Can you imagine the amount of mud and silt that has to be pumped from that? Can you imagine that, folks? Have you ever been to the dam? It's impressive. It's amazing. It's a feat of human engineering. And it was allowed to get to that point, even though we had a 66% rate increase. Even if there was a desilting or dam, nobody said to me exactly what the term is. a desilting levy that you pay on every water bill. And that has been going on for how long? At least 2 years, 3 years? And nothing happened. It's happening now. Was that with the advice of the previous administration? Or is it with the new way of doing things with this current UWP administration? Folks, we're moving forward. The government was elected by the majority of the people of St. Lucia to do what it said it would do within 5 years. The government is moving forward in doing that. More money has been spent on roads this year or last year than had been spent in all the years during the previous administration. That's a fact. People notice it. And the 150 that is added onto each gallon of gas is going towards that effort. Doesn't matter if it's 5 cents you add taxes, people are going to complain. However, most of the time, people are hard-pressed to see what their tax dollars are doing. In this case, we can see the changes, and major changes are coming to the roads of St. Lucia. Folks, let's be civil with each other. Let's allow the government to do what it was elected to do. Let's get rid of all the pompous and the grandiose talk and all the, the threats and the demands. We have, I was just given a signal over there, 10 more minutes. We have 10 more minutes, folks.
We'll go up to 11 o'clock.
We'll go up to 11 o'clock. You paying me extra tonight?
Yes.
That's
credit card.
That's a good sound. I accept credit cards.
Magic card, sorry.
I accept credit cards.
Magic card.
I have a little attachment from Square for my phone. I could actually take your payment on my phone.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah?
SNS card has some credit.
Hey, once it has monetary value, that's I'll take an SNS card. I give it to someone. Right? So, folks, it's nighttime. It's revelation of a lot of the hypocrisy that goes on in St. Lucia, politics-wise. And we must stop allowing ourselves to be hoodwinked. We must stop allowing ourselves to be bluffed. We must stop drinking the red Kool-Aid, or whatever the color of the Kool-Aid is, and we must think about country first. And I'm very alarmed that a lot of the rhetoric that is out there is leaning towards violence. I am. Many people are concerned because those concerns have been expressed to me by many St. Lucians at home, here in St. Lucia, and in the diaspora. We need to be circumspect in what we put out there. Because if you put out good vibes, you get good vibes in return. If you put out bad vibes, if you encourage fringe elements to feel empowered, you're going to encourage bad vibes out to you. We must stop all the hypocrisy. We must stop all the hypocrisy. And let it be known that St. Lucia is really a place where we have no time for violence, where we have no time for intolerance. Stop the hypocrites. We must continue to preach, to admonish the hypocrites.
Hypocrite, you dirty hypocrite. You're gonna pay the price someday. Hypocrites, all of you hypocrites. You're gonna pay the price someday. Words you speak from your mouth, but your heart is telling lies. Oh, hypocrites, you better watch out. We walk, we talk together. Yes, we do.
Yes, folks, I'd like to acknowledge some more listeners, our international and diaspora listeners. We have a listener from Brisbane, Australia. We have another listener in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Maho, Dominica, St. John's, Antigua. Brooklyn, New York. Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Londrina in Brazil. Good evening to you in Brazil. Thank you very much for logging on to Keeping It Real. Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Woodbridge, Ontario, Canada. Princesstown in Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome. Stone Mountain in Georgia. Welcome all St. Lucians, I would presume, and others who love St. Lucia. Welcome to Keeping It Real. Hypocrites, you better watch out, because your hypocrisy is going to be your undoing. It's going to catch up to you. And you can fool some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. Folks, Mr. Ellis wants to say something about hypocrisy and all that is happening in St. Lucia. I see him looking at me, you know, burning his eyes at me, trying to get my attention. And I know he has lots to say, but you know, he likes to talk a lot sometimes when he starts talking.
Okay. Well, you know, very interesting stuff here tonight.
Oh, hold on. Somebody sent me a message, Somebody said to me, tell Lionel good night for me. Enjoyed chatting with him last night. So I guess you know who that is.
I know. Right. Good night.
Look
good
at.
night,
You know, I wish you could see his face here right now.
I tell you.
I could turn off the light inside. It would be bright.
No. Very interesting stuff. You know, I tell you this politics. My mother was just passed. She always used to tell me politics is a dirty game. Don't get into it. But I think, you know, if you're honest and if you're sincere about your country and the love to help do things right, you can't help but get into it. Even if you don't, even if you stand on the side and you can advise, and that's your way of participating. What I can't understand is how we have a process in this democratic side of the world where parties will go to campaign, and in the final analysis the electorate will take a decision as to who will run the country. And then the side that has lost will feel that they have a right to overthrow. When I hear people talk about who will be, what the term of office, when they'll get a new prime minister for Christmas, and what is all of this about? You know, what is all of this about? You have to understand that there's a term limit, and fortunately for us, not like the United States, as much as people love Obama, he can only serve 2 terms. And before him there was Bill Clinton. Despite that people felt that Bill Clinton was a good president of the United States, he could only serve 2 terms. You know, and whether or not Trump will be allowed to serve 2 terms, that's for us to see. But leave it to the people to decide. Do your stuff. Do your homework. Represent where you have to represent. I remember the walking out of the parliament by the same opposition who want to write a letter and copy to the British government. Walking out, flinging their hands in the air.
Renegades,
you know. And then and you know what the sad thing about it? I was in the house and see Dr. Anthony coming over and talk to the children, you know. You know, he's so proud to go and talk to the children. You invite the school children into the house so that they can see what Parliament is like, and then you behave like that, big men, cannot sit down and take the heat, cannot take down and understand that they have to represent the people, even if they don't get their own way. They're not there to represent themselves. I can understand, but the idea of disagreeing with someone. You can disagree. There's a process.
But you see, we want to encourage conflict resolution in St. Lucia,
Yeah.
which many people consider to be at the root of a lot of the crime in St. Lucia. But the example that these high-profile individuals are setting is that if I don't have my way, your
That's
life
right.
will be miserable. I will do everything that I can to get rid of you.
When I hear people talk about revolution, St. Lucia needs a revolution. Strong word. But then they when they catch themselves, they say they want a peaceful resolution.
Yeah. We know the tricks. The word games. Games.
Then, the same person tell you that this person, the worst person. I saw Dr. Kennedy Anthony put his hand on his head as if to say, in my
on the
opinion,
weekend.
as if to say,
my gosh.
oh my God, what did I do? I have to sit down
You
behind.
you remember the comment, tell this guy to stay in his section.
Yeah, I have to sit down and listen to this guy, Richard Frederick, standing in front of me.
But hold on there. When St. Lucians see that, when they had witnessed all the things that had been said before about this individual, and to now appear on the same platform, let's get it right. Everybody's right in St. Lucia. But after so many alligators had been made, after so many things had been said, you can say that you may patch things up if you are patching things up. But the question is, what has happened between then and now that has nullified all of those statements that you made, all of those accusations and allegations and whatever you said? Are you saying that you lied back then? Are you saying that these things are no longer of concern now? What is it exactly are you saying that you can share the same platform? Notwithstanding, and that's not the argument about being able to patch things up, but what has caused you to patch things up?
Citizens of St. Lucia, my brothers, my sisters, good night, one and all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Tonight, I have come to pray. You see, I'm one of the jackasses, so I have come to pray.
Well, Pamwekidi, eh? Oh, why are you looking at me like that?
No, I trying to understand the logic of an intelligent man going and making a fool of himself, opening a statement like that. Just proves the whole upset about a word and then come in and confess that probably the Prime Minister was right. That's basically what he's saying. We got.
Well, let me tell you something. Hold on. I will not condemn people, and I will not condemn Kenny Anthony for calling himself names. If he chooses to call himself a jackass and say that he's brain, I'm not going to say anything.
But you see, you talk about contradictions and being hypocrites. If you listen to the speeches before, that was the condemnation of the Prime Minister.
No, but I think you're missing the point here. The thing is, it was a march of shame. And there's also something referred to as self-flagellation. he was flogging himself in full public view
Exactly.
as his act of contrition, as his confession, as his denial of or imposing of shame upon himself so that he can come out of purgatory.
Exactly.
Right? So, if he is going to do that, if he's going to publicly humiliate himself, let him do that. I think that might be good. It might be a good cleansing. A good cleansing. To call yourself a jackass in public and to say that you brain, that is the time when someone realizes the folly of their ways, when they realize that they have to make up, they have to atone, make themselves one. An atonement for whatever they have done. And seek and beg forgiveness from the people.
But he did that before.
Well, he's doing it again. He's not perfect. So if he continues making the same mistakes, then he has to administer upon himself the same punishments.
Well, anyway, we again going beyond the top of the clock.
Well, we're right here,
time
folks.
just flies.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in with us. At the console is Mr. Lionel Ellis, and I'm Norbert Williams with you. I'd like to say thank you to all our listeners in the diaspora and all the St. Lucians at home who've been listening in Babono, in Vieux-Fort, in Pierrot, in Soufrière, in Canaries, in where?
Brisbane.
Brisbane, Australia, yes. All those out there in the diaspora. Up in Grosley there, I know you're listening as well. Conyers, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, Philly, Maho, Dominica, St. John's, Antigua, Londrina in Brazil. Oh, somebody else is just on here in Gaithersburg, Maryland in the U.S. Good night to you. We're just about switching off and heading over to the BBC. This is 93.1 Kyrie FM, and we'd like to thank you for joining us for another session of Keeping It Real. I'm Norbert Williams. Good night.